Так, второй стрим погнал. Работает, не работает. Сейчас посмотрим. Больше времени трачу на эти проверки стрима. Так. Что мы дальше делаем? Мы дальше делаем working with the date, time, function and operators. Используем интервал и все прочее.
Now that you have learned the fundamentals of PostgreSQL data types, it's time to learn how to manipulate these data types to assist with your data cleansing and transformation tasks. In this chapter, you'll dive into some built-in date and time functions and operators and learn how to use them to manipulate date and time data. First, in this video, you'll learn how to add and subtract date and time values and understand the expected behavior of each operation. Next, you'll learn how to use these functions to retrieve the current date and time. You'll then look at how to use the age function to calculate the difference between two timestamps. And finally, you'll learn how to use the extract, date part, and date trunc functions to manipulate timestamps to retrieve subfields of date and time values. Let's get started. Performing basic arithmetic operations on date and time data types will become a useful skill in practice, but it's important to understand how the return values for these operations vary depending on the type of date and time data types you are working with. For example, when you subtract date values, the result that is returned is an integer data type. You can also add integer values to date data types. In this example, we are adding the whole number 3 to a date value and getting a result that is 3 days greater than the original date. When adding integers to date values, the implied precision is days. However, when we perform the same operation on timestamp data types, as you see in this example, we get an interval as the result. The age function allows us to calculate the difference between two timestamps. The age function takes two timestamp arguments and subtracts the first argument from the second argument and returns an interval as a result. You'll notice in this example that the result is identical to what we calculated on the previous slide. I'm sure that at this point in the course, you've questioned why we are using a fictional DVD rental store as our sample dataset. And it would be a valid question. As we talked about earlier in the course, the Sicquel database is a widely used sample dataset for working with and learning about relational databases. In fact, it's been more than 13 years since the data in this database was created, and the age function is a great way to highlight this. Learning how to use intervals for your date and time calculations is a very useful skill to develop with real-world applications. Using an interval is a great technique when you need to complete relative date and time calculations. If you recall in the first chapter, we calculated the expected return date by adding an interval of 3 days to the rental date column. You can also perform multiplication and division on date and time data types using intervals, which is another useful tool when you have relative date and time data. For example, let's say we wanted to add 21 days to a date value. As you recall from earlier in this video, when you are working with a date data type, you can just add an integer to the date. However, what if you needed to perform this calculation with a timestamp? This is where intervals come in handy, as you see in this example. Great work! Now let's practice performing basic arithmetic operations on date and time values in the exercises.
Спасибо, дядь. Так. Subtract the rental date from the return date to calculate the number of days rented. Adding and subtracting date and time values. Is this tag days rented as days rented? Days rented. Subtract. Так, хорошо. F. Так что ли? Нет. Rental. Rental date. Rental. Return date. Return date. R у нас. Извиняюсь. Return date. Что не так? Rental date. Rental date. Age function to calculate their days returned. Great job. Notice that there are some records that have a null value of the days rented calculation. We'll dig into why this is accurate and that it means in the next exercise. Окей, ладно, хорошо. Convert rental duration to multiplying it with a 1 day interval. Convert the rental duration to interval. Мы это делали, кстати. Интервал, вот. Интервал. Интервал. Interval 1 day day и умноженное на r return date rental duration. Вот. Calculate the days rent as did previous. Rental date. Rental date, where the return date excludes rentals with a null or outside in rental is not null. Great job. Now let's put it all together to calculate the actual exercise return date in the final exercise. Хорошо. Convert rental duration to multiplying it with a 1-day interval. То есть тут select interval day чего? Select плюс интервал days. А что такое? Не, это не то. Day. Ну. Convert by multiplying умноженное на rental duration, rental date. Ну вот так разве что. Угу.
Great work. Now we are going to learn how to retrieve and use the current date and time value in your queries at varying levels of precision. As you expand your SQL expertise, one of the most common techniques you'll use is to retrieve the current date and time value in your query. PostgreSQL provides several functions for doing this, and we'll explore a few in this video, beginning with the now function. Now allows you to retrieve a timestamp value for the current date and time at the microsecond precision with time zone. Many times you will want to retrieve the current timestamp without the time zone. You can do this by explicitly casting it, as seen in this example. Casting allows you to convert one data type to another, such that columns stored in your database can be retrieved and output as a different type. There are a couple of ways you can cast data in your queries. We saw how to cast the timestamp returned by the now function on the previous slide by adding 2 colons followed by the new type name. This syntax, which uses the double colon operator, is specific to PostgreSQL and non-conforming to the SQL standard. You can also use the cast function to achieve the same result by specifying the column name, or in this case, the now function, followed by the type name. PostgreSQL provides alternative methods for retrieving the current date and time values. The current timestamp function returns the same result as of the now function, as you see in this example, and either approach can be used pretty much interchangeably in your queries. One difference between current timestamp and now is that with current timestamp, you can specify a precision parameter, as you see in the example, which will cause the result to have the seconds rounded to the number of fractional digits specified. Sometimes you want to get the current date or time, but don't require the precision of a timestamp. In these instances, you can use the current date and/or current time functions to achieve this. In this example, the current date function will return a date value without the time. Additionally, you can use the current time function to get the time value with time zone without the date value, as seen in this example. In the exercises, you'll get some experience on how to retrieve the current timestamp and use what you learned in the previous video to do some arithmetic operations with these results.
Use the console. Function the outputs to determine which of the following is not correct. Сейчас. Как он тут использовал? Select надо было использовать. Returns the current time without time zone. Так как раз таймзоны. Recurrent time shape is analogous with now and returns a timestamp with time zone by default. Use now to select the current timestamp with time zone. Now. Извиняюсь. Timestamp. Now does return the current timestamp with time zone. Блять, да что ты хочешь? Now. Ну. Хуйня, не понимаю. Ну. А. Да хуйня какая-то, не понимаю. Did you use now to select the current timestamp? Блять. Now. Сука, что ты хочешь? Ну. Просто now. Ты чё, блять, сука, ты охуел? Просто now надо было? Пиздец. Select the current date without any time value. I will use cause function to eliminate time zone from the current timestamp. Select the current timestamp. Without. Так что ли? Что там как каст делается? Cast now is timestamp. Timestamp. Так что, ёптами, select the current date. Date. Cast. Now is date. Понятно все. Current date, no, все, я понял. Excellent. Understanding how to retrieve the manipulation, the current date and time in your queries in a critical SQL skill that you will use often. Это я понял, что часто надо будет использовать. Select the current timestamp without time zone and alias. Все ясно. Now check the highlighted code. Could you find the first entry in the fields? Select the current timestamp. Нахуя так сложно? Current timestamp as right now. Блять, что за пиздец вообще? 5 days from now. Plus days. Интервал. Finally, let's use a second level precision that no fraction. Хорошо, второй уровень, окей. И тут второй уровень, да? А что это нам дает? Мы округляем. Extracting date and transforming date.
In a previous video, you learned about the age function and how to use it to calculate the difference between two timestamps. Next, we'll look at some additional built-in functions that will help us transform timestamp and interval data types and create new fields that will help us prepare data for analysis. Let's start by taking a look at how we can use the extract, date part, and date trunc functions to manipulate timestamp data and create new columns by extracting subfields from existing date and time values. This type of data manipulation is useful when the precision of a timestamp is not useful for analysis and you want to use date parts like year or month in your queries, but the underlying data only contains a standard timestamp value. You may also not care about certain precision, like time of day in some analyses, and truncating timestamps may be necessary.
Often need to extract parts of timestamp. Прикольно.
This is where the extract and date part functions come in very handy. To use these functions in your queries, you will need to pass two parameters, the field identifier and the source. The field parameter is an identifier or string if you're using date part, that indicates what subfield that you want to extract from the source. The various field identifiers include year, month, quarter, day of week, etc. The source parameter needs to be a valid timestamp, time, or interval data type. Both extract and date part will produce identical results and can be used interchangeably with only slight variations in how you pass in the field and source parameters. Now let's get into some examples and see this in action. In our DVD rentals database, every customer rental has a corresponding record in the payment table, and each transaction is recorded with a timestamp in the payment date column, as the snippet below highlights. This level of detail is certainly necessary for an e-commerce application, but there will no doubt be times when you will want to be able to aggregate this data to use for training a model, reporting, and/or trend analysis. For example, you may want to identify the highest revenue by quarter. To do this, we'll want to aggregate the amount column from the payment table and use the extract function to extract the quarter and year subfields from the payment date column. Here you'll see that we also introduce a technique with the group by clause that allows us to specify the fields in the select clause using a numeric reference which comes in handy when using functions to derive new columns. And you see the results of the query here, which aggregate the amount column grouped by quarter and year. The date trunc function will truncate timestamp or interval data types to return a timestamp or interval at a specified precision. The precision values are a subset of the field identifiers that can be used with the extract and date part functions. For example, to truncate a date by year, we pass the year identifier as the first parameter of the date trunc function, as you see here, and get the following results. Or we can truncate the same timestamp using month as the parameter and get this result. Unlike these functions, dateTrunc will return an interval or timestamp rather than a numeric value. Let's put these new skills to use in the exercises.
Сейчас. Get the day of the week from the rental column. Extract надо написать, да? Extract. From rental day. До. А чё до? Ну, типа, это 24 рабочих дня я нашел, да? 25. You can use extract and date part to easily create new fields in your queries by extracting subfields from a source timestamp field. Now suppose you want to produce a predictive model that will help forecast DVD rental activity by day of the week. You could use the extract function with the DAL field identifier in the... Что там было, кстати? Господи. Извиняюсь. Два. Day of week. Блять, day of week рабочие. Нерабочие, да? Day of week. Do. Прикольно. Кстати, прикольно, да. Хорошо. Count the total number of rentals day by day of the week. Count Что такое? Count the total number. Хорошо. You can count the number of records in the rental table for a given date, range, and aggregate by the newly count the total number of rentals rental ID from вот так. Что ты хочешь? Угу. Просто. Серьезно? Count rental ID, как rentals. Excellent work. Using the extract function can help determine hidden insight in your data, like what days of the week are the besides for DVD rentals. Truncate the rental date field by year. The date trunk function will year rental date. Что не так? Извиняюсь. Now modify the previous query to truncate the rental date by month. Тоже? Let's see what happens when we truncate by day of the month. Let's see that happens when разделить на все, я понял. Day trunk Finally, count the total number of rentals by rental day, and alias count Rental ID. Господи, постоянно забываю Rental ID. Here was some. Extract the day of the week. Extract day though extract the day of the week from the rental date column using the alias day week. Extract the day of a week date part from the rental date. Rental date between cast. Use the interval in the where. Interval. Close the select records. The period. With rental dates. Блять. Finally, use a case statement and date. Блять. Date trunk. To create a new column called past due. Так, сколько мы? 50 минут. Все, всем спасибо. Пока.